Good morning everyone, my name is Gian Kapampangan and today me and my groupmates are going to discuss about the ownership and structural forms of business enterprise. So I'll be the one to discuss first. So the topic I'm going to discuss is about the types of ownership in business. So in the business world, the way things are owned and structured vary differently. So to better understand this lesson, let me define first what is the word ownership means. So what is ownership? So ownership is a legal term. Most commonly, it means the legal title to a thing or control over the thing owned, the right of possession and disposal. So if you have ownership of something, it means that you are the owner and it belongs to you, and you have the right for that thing. So as we apply to business enterprise, the term ownership means title to a position of the assets of the enterprise, the power to determine the policies of the operation, and the right to receive and dispose of the proceeds. So if you are the owner of that particular enterprise, you have the legal right and power in controlling and making decisions for your business. So ownership has three broad classifications. First is the private ownership. So when can we determine that the following enterprise belong to a private ownership? So it is when an enterprise is so organized that private individuals exercise and enjoy the rights and privileges of an owner in their own interest. So as we applied it into business, private ownership means it is a privately owned enterprise. It is a commercial enterprise owned by a private investors, shareholders or owners, usually collectively, but they can be owned by a single individual. And it is in contrast to a state institution such as publicly owned enterprise and government agencies. So many well-known companies are private companies. Some of the most popular private companies such as Albertsons, Koch Industries, and many more. So next is the public ownership. So again, when can we determine that the following enterprise is belong to public ownership? So it is when the organization of the enterprise is affected and management is controlled by political bodies as municipal, provincial, or national government or by any instrumentality created by them. So public ownership, sometimes also known as government ownership, or it is a term used for enterprises owned or run by the state. So the aim for this is to provide services needed by everyone regardless of income or wealth. And some examples of public ownership such as water system and rail system. So third is the mixed ownership. So mixed ownership exists when the elements of ownership are divided such that private persons and public bodies share in the operation of the same enterprise. So which means that it is a joint enterprises shared between the government and private interest. There are five basic forms of private ownership: the individual or single or sole proprietorship, partnership, cooperative organization, corporation, and corporate combination. Any business enterprise may be organized according to any of the forms I mentioned. The choice, however, depends upon a careful consideration of a number of factors, among which are the following. So first, the nature and the size of the business to be started. Second, the capital required and the means of procuring it. Third, the length of times the enterprise is expected to operate. Fourth, the technical condition affecting the enterprise. Fifth, the types of products to be manufactured. Sixth, the method and volume of production. Seventh, the kind of markets to be supplied and methods of marketing. And the last is the competitive nature of the chosen industry. So let us define what is the individual or single proprietorship. So single proprietorship is the ownership vested or controlled in one person. This form of ownership is small, requires but little amount of capital. The single individual promotes the enterprise, gets together the necessary land, buildings, machinery, and labor, and conducts the business in person. And he owns the business outright. So, a sole proprietorship is the simplest and most common legal structure someone can choose. It's an unincorporated business owned and run by one individual in which there is no distinction between the business and the owner. If you own a sole proprietorship, you are entitled to all profits and are responsible for all your business losses, liabilities, and day-to-day running of the business. So, what are the advantages of single proprietorship? First, it is easy to start and to terminate. Anyone who could act for himself may start a business. All you have to do is to secure facilities such as supplies, goods, equipment, and quarters before you open the door for your business. And no formalities are necessary to start, and you as the owner can terminate the business as you wishes. Second, control or management lies entirely in the hands of the owner. So because you are the sole owner of the business, you have complete control over all decisions and you aren't required to consult with anyone else when you need to make decisions or want to make changes for your business. Third, only a small amount of capital is required in starting. A sole proprietorship is the simplest and least expensive legal structure to establish. Costs are minimal and with legal costs limited to obtaining the necessary license or permits. And the fourth is profits belong entirely to the owner. So since you are the sole owner, the profit will entirely go and belongs to you. And the last is high credit standing. Anyone who extends credit to a business owned by one person may look beyond the value of the firm to the private resources to the owner. In contrast, an extension of credit to a corporation must be based entirely on the ability of the business to repay the debt. However, while there are certain advantages, there are also a number of disadvantages that makes the sole proprietorship model quiet and attractive to business owners. So, here are the disadvantages of single proprietorship. So first is the limited judgment and wisdom. So being alone, the owner's judgment may not be sufficient enough to promote the business because as business expands, the multiplicity and complexity of functions may prove too much for one person to handle. Second, limited amount of capital. So as sole owner, he may experience difficulties in securing the necessary amount of capital for a large-scale enterprise because a proprietor can only raise money from his own personal property and credit. And third is the unlimited liability. So, this means that the owner of the business has a higher level of risk because your small business in the form of a sole proprietorship is personally liable for all debts of the business and other properties not in the business could be seized by the creditors. So if your commercial establishment fails, its creditors can run after your real estate, your bank deposits, and your other properties. And the last is difficulties of management. So as a sole owner, you are responsible for your day-to-day business, such as purchasing, merchandising, extending credit, financing, employing personnel, and so forth. And because you have a lot of responsibilities, which happens that sometimes some functions will not perform properly and which may cause trouble for your business.
Now we're gonna talk about the partnership in business. According to Article 1967 of the Civil Code defines a partners as an organization where two or more persons bind themselves and contribute money, property, or industry to a common fund with intention of dividing the profits among themselves. Partnership may be classified as to object or liability. As to object, a partners is either universal or a particular. A universal partnership or property is one where the partners contribute all their property into a common fund, with the intention of dividing it as well as profits among themselves. A universal partnership of profit compromises all that the partners may acquire through their industry or efforts. A particular partnership may be established over a determining thing, its way of fruit for the accomplishment or a specific undertaking or the excess of profession. As to liability, Philippine law recognizes the form of partnership insofar as liability is concerned. These are the general partnership, unlimited, or special partnership. General partnership is a business relationship between two or more persons competent to make contracts for the purpose of engaging in a business activity, and it's one of the oldest forms of business ownership. Agreement and control of partnership. The partnership organization is formed as easily as that of a single proprietorship by an oral or written agreement. The partners outline the nature of the enterprises, set forth their respective rights and obligations, determine the shares each other is to have and how the profits are to be divided, and stipulate other terms and conditions affecting their joint venture. It is preferable that the partnership agreement should be drawn upon in writing by a reliable attorney and assigned by every one of the partners in order to remove the probability of misunderstanding. The control of the business under the partnership is held jointly by the partners. In the absence of limiting agreements among the partners of the power of control or management is held equally divided. In other words, equal voice of the management, equal sharing profits or losses, but it depends on the agreement both of the partnership or the other party on how they will equally in terms of the business. To add on that, it is not enough that the partners has the required money, experience, and knowledge. But equally important are the personal qualifications such as honesty and reliability, industry and technical knowledge. It has 5 advantages of partnership. First, it could be as easily formed as the single proprietorship. Some of sole proprietorship partners can easily to build either writing or oral and with outline the activities it can easily start the operations. Second, there are more persons to conduct the business and to handle its problems. It can operate on a larger scale, gains are likely greater, and risks share among a greater number of a person. Third, a partnership has access to greater or better credit facilities. Within two or more partners assume unlimited reliability for the obligations of the partnership. Banks and credit institute are willing to lend more money. Raw materials and supplies can be held on a credit. Fourth, the combined ability and resources of the partners are a source of strength. There is a combined judgment by the partners, a better solution of the business problems, a close relationship between efforts and rewards. For example, as every partner expects to derive profit in stronger incentive on the partners to put forth their best efforts. Fifth, retention of valuable employees. Changing is the partnership form of business ownership offers an opportunity for a sole proprietorship to retain the services of a valuable employee by making him a partner. Those are the 5 partnership, and of course, it has disadvantages. It has 4 disadvantages. First, unlimited liability as partners. Not only the assets of the partnership but as a personal property of each partner to answer for the occurring debts of the partnership. This is the obligation imposed by law to share the indebtedness of the firm. After all, there is still a risk in partnership business. Second, disagreement between partners after leads to delay and difficulties which could endanger the enterprise. This harmony of interest in management and lack of prompt action affects seriously the operations of the business. Some weaknesses of the committee earlier referred to exist in stronger form in a partnership, resulting in any decision will be delays, compromise action, and other shortcomings. Third, easy dissolution. Death, insanity, and insolvency of a partners automatically dissolves the partnership. This is because the law construes a partnership to be a personal relationship. It comes to an end when death takes one of the partners. Fourth, frozen investment. For an individual who wishes to invest some money in a business, the partnership form may be proved to be a poor choice from the viewpoint of liquidity and transferability. It can be easy to invest in partnership but difficult to withdraw funds. Going back to as a liability, we are now in a limited or special partnership. Limited partnership. In order to avoid the unlimited liability of all the general partners in a general partnership, the limited partnership was evolved. One or more partners in limited partners must be general partners who have unlimited liability. The limited have only limited liability which is up to the extent of their investment. They're not active part of the partnership. They just contribute capital which must be paid actually in cash or property and cannot contribute services and does not appear in the partnership name. The advantage on this limited partnership: first, there is a single direction of management, thus there is unity and prompt action. Second, the limited liability is special or limited partners serve as good inducement of investment resulting in a larger amount of capital to carry on the business of the partnership. As there are advantages, there are also disadvantages of limited partnership. First, the unlimited power given to general partners may result in abuse. While the special partners could not interfere in the management of the partnership even if there is efficiency in management, only when fraud exists or when there is a clear violations of the partnership agreement can special partners apply for a remedial action. The second last is there is a possibility of collusion among the general partners to defraud the creditors and the limited or special partners.
The evolution of the partnership organization has led to different kinds of partners, among whom are the first, the general partner, who earlier referred to the second kinds, which is limited partner, also referred to the capitalist partner, who contributes money or property to the organization. Fourth is the industrial partner, who contributes his service, skills, talents, and abilities. Fifth is the managing partner, who administers the operation and manages the business directly. And sixth is the liquidating partner, who handles the affairs of dissolution of the business. 7. Ostensible partner, who publicly makes known his connection with the partnership. 8 is the secret partner, whose identity is not publicly made known, unlike the ostensible partner. 9 is the silent partner, who is not given a voice in management. Next is the dormant partner, who is both secret and silent. And lastly, the nominal partner, who is no partner at all because the firm continues using his name for business or prestige purposes only. A partnership is dissolved by the death or insolvency or insanity of any partner. This expulsion of any partner in good faith by the other partners also dissolve it. There are many other reasons when a partnership is dissolved, but generally, the will or agreement of the partners or inability of the one partner to continue the relationship terminates of organization. Senior and junior partners: a general partner who has a substantial investment in the firm who receive a relatively larger percentage of the profit, and who by virtue of age and years of association with the firms assume a major role in the management, is a senior partner. A junior partner is the opposite of the senior partner. Normally, he is a young man only recently admitted to the partner status. He does not have very much money invested, receive only a minor share of the profit, and is not expected to assume responsibility for major decisions. Okay, let's proceed to the cooperative organization. A cooperative association has some elements of a large partnership and also many features of a corporation. Although it is distinct from both, the principal theory of the cooperative association is the elimination of profit as controlling motivation and reduction of certain economic evils. Under the cooperative system, enterprises are formed to provide goods and services to the member at cost. Here are some kinds of a cooperative organization. First, the consumer cooperative. This cooperative organization usually draws its member from the general public. It is a familiar form of the cooperative as most cooperative stores. It carries on retail trade operation. It may engage in marketing as grocery, clothes store, gasoline station, or may take the form similar foods and service enterprises, supplying the ultimate consumer. 2. Producer cooperative. This cooperative draws its membership chiefly from the producer of grains and other farms products such as livestock, fruits, and dairy products. Most of these associations employ the cooperative principle in order to enable their members to buy supplies at wholesale, eliminating the middleman profit. They may pool the resources to buy farm machinery, operation irrigation system, or undertake other operation which they cannot handle individually, but which they refuse to buy from profit-taking establishment. 3 is the marketing cooperative, closely related to the producer cooperative and often merged with it into the one organization. Is the marketing cooperative. Banga citrus growers have cooperatives to sell their products and thereby eliminate the middleman from their profits. Facomas are cooperatives of farmers which are both producers and marketing organizations. Fourth, the financing cooperative. This cooperative association makes possible for people or of small means to acquire a home to borrow money for other purposes at relatively low rates of interest. Building a loan association, savings and loans association, and certain types of credit unions are examples of the cooperative principles in the fields of finance. The credit unions, often called the poor man's bank, is a cooperative organization. Other associations provide for fire, health, life, automobile, and other forms of insurance on cooperative basis. Many fraternal benefit association and mutual insurance company employ cooperative principle, but not all of them are cooperative in the full of sense of idea. Principles of Cooperative. Pursuant to Section 3 of the Presidential Decree of Number 175, strengthening the cooperative movements of President Marcos, states, a cooperative shall be governed by the following principles. A. The open membership. It should be voluntary and available without artificial restriction or any social, political, racial, or religious discrimination. So all persons who can make use of its service are willing to accept the responsibility of membership. B. The democratic control. In primary cooperative, irrespective of share owned, each member can only cast one vote in deciding upon the affairs of cooperative. The affairs of the cooperative shall be administered by persons elected or appointed in a manner agreed by the member and accountable to them. C. The limited interest. So capital share. Capital shall earn on limited interest the maximum rate of interest to be established by the Department of Local Government and Community Development from time to time. D. Patronage refund net income after the interest of capital has been shall be distributed among the members after the interest of capital has been paid shall be distributed among the members in proportion to their power of cooperative. Section cooperative shall have the following power, which is first, to exercise the same rights and privilege given to person, partnership, and corporation provided under existing laws. Second, to establish and operate business enterprises of all kinds as their needs dictates and their capabilities allow, subject to provision of existing laws. 3. To establish rural banks under the Rural Bank Act and or to purchase our government-held preferred share of rural banks which may converted to voting common stock under the rule of regulation to be promoted by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank and the Agrarian Reform Fund Commission. 4. To enjoy all the privilege and incentive granted by the NASIDA Act and those granted by all government agencies to business organization under existing laws, providing that all requirements are met. 5. To petition the government to expropriate either urban or rural lands for agricultural production, cottage industry, business, or housing purposes. And 6. To own and dispose of property, to enter into contract to sure or to be should, and to do and perform such other acts as may be necessary in pursuits of its objectives. Privilege of cooperatives. Section 5 Cooperatives shall enjoy the following privilege. A. Exemption from income taxes and sales provided the substantial portion of the net income of the cooperative is returned to members in the form of interest and or patronage refund. B. In areas where inappropriate cooperative excess the preferential rights to supply rice, corn, and other grains, fish, and other marine product, meat, eggs, milk, vegetables, tobacco, and other agricultural commodities produced by member of the cooperative concerned to state agencies administering price stabilization program, and C. Lastly, in appropriate cases, exemption from the application of the minimum wage law upon the recommendation of the Bureau of Cooperative Development subject to the approval of the Secretary of Labor. Corporation. So, what is corporation? A corporation is an artificial being created by operation of law, having the rights, succession, and the powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. Natures and characteristic of corporation. The corporate form of the ownership possess characteristics which make it adaptable to large-scale enterprise. The characteristics that may be mentioned are: first, it is an artificial business unit and its creation is through the process of law. The law makes creation of a corporation possible and govern a large part of its operation. Second, the basic structure of a corporation is simple. It is composed of any number of stockholder or shareholder who are the real owners of the corporation and who actively manage the company's affairs because of its structures. A corporation operates through delegated authority and responsibility. 3. The corporation organization is of wide scope. It stands for group, activity, and combined investment of the members. First, the existence of the corporation is practically permanent by operation of law. The term of life of a corporation is usually limited by statute to a period of years, subject to renewal. And lastly, the function of the corporation is public. The assumption is that the existence of a corporation is for the benefits of the public or society. Let's proceed. There is also a kind of private corporation. First, the stock corporation is one which capital stock is divided into shares authorized to distribute dividends to the holders of the shares or all of the surplus profit on the basis of the shares. Second is the non-stock corporation, is one in which the capital stock is not so divided. It issues certificates of stock which in reality are profit-making enterprise and is not allowed to pay dividends. When stockholders agree to take sums of the capital stock and to pay for it, we call the stock as subscribed. Once it is paid for, it becomes paid up capital.
Angeline, BS at Chumon B of Group 5. I'm going to report classes of capital stock. Classes of capital stock. Although there are many variations of stocks ownership, they are usually grouped into two, the preferred stock and the common stock. The common stock is stock is known also as ordinary share, common share, capital stock, and equity shares. This is accounted in a general ledger account in which par value of all common stock issued by corporation is recorded. Common stock is classified under equity section of the balance sheet. And the preferred stock, a preferred stock is a class of ownership incorporation that has a higher claim on its assets and earnings than common stock. Preferred stockholders receive regular dividends and a repaid merger. Stock represents a percentage of ownership in a company, the value of which determined by the market and the volume of which is determined and issued by the company. At the most basic level, there are two kinds of stock, preferred stock and common stock. Preferred is rarer than common stock, generally comprising a small proportion of all shares. It's often more expensive and can come with a minimum purchase amount. Some preferred stock have additional benefits like convertibility. Convertibility. Convertible preferred stock can be exchanged for a common stock, not vice versa. Anti-dilution. When a company issues more shares, the prices of an individual share falls. Callability. The shareholder has the right to redeem amount called a call price. Preferred stock example. Corporation is a new startup looking for inventors. It issues 10,000 shares of which 1,000 are preferred shares. She can purchase 200 preferred shares. She can now set tight white dividends start rolling in, netting herself a reliable income as long as the company is profitable. That is example of the preferred. Corporate ownership and control is published quarter by Veritas Enterprise. We focus on a broad range of cornerstone issues of corporate governance, board of directors, corporate control, executive compensation, adult financing reporting, conflict of interest, shareholder rights, and etc. Each type of business ownership has its own terms. Corporate ownership, on the other hand, can involve any number of ownerships, but it turns the business into a corporation. The business gets a name and takes on many of the rights and responsibilities that private individuals enjoy. The organizational advantages. The organizational advantages. Number one, ease of acquiring large amount of capital. Number two, flexible ownership. Number three, limited liability of stockholders. Four, more or less permanent existence. Number five, legal entity. Ease of acquiring large of amount of capital by the sales of thousands of shares to both large and small investors. Investors. A corporation has easy financing problems. The necessary capital could be easily secured to finance the enterprise. 2. Flexible ownership. By more purchase of stock, inventors become part ownership of the business, which could be easily sold as well. Number 3. Limited liability of stockholders. Type of legal structure for an organization where a corporate loss will not exceed the amount invested. In other words, investors and owners of private assets are not as risk into the company. 4. More or less permanent existence. Death or incapacity of the stockholder does not affect the status of the corporation. The stock simply passes to other hands while the corporations continues in this operation. Number 5, legal entity. And the individual proprietorship, partnership, corporation, association, or other organization that has in the eyes of the law the capacity to make a contract or an agreement and the abilities to assume an obligation and to discharge indebtedness. sense of the corporation's eminent advantages. Although, like other forms of economic organization, the corporations is subject to corrupt use, inefficiency, and stagnation. Nevertheless, these conditions are unlikely to continue longer in a corporation because it must meet a series of powerful challenges to its vitality.
Disadvantages of corporate ownership. Organizational expense is the initial cost incurred to create a company. Corporation are the most expensive to organize. Because of the legal nature of a corporation, it is usually advisable to engage a lawyer to assist in the organizational procedures. When we say corporation, it's a business entity that is owned by its shareholders who elect a board of directors to oversee the organization's activities. The corporation is liable for the actions and finances of the business. The shareholders are not. Corporations can be for profit as business are or not for profit as charitable organizations typically are. A corporation is a legal entity that is separate and distinct from its owners. Corporations enjoy most of the rights and responsibilities that individuals possess. They can enter contracts, loan and borrow money, sue and be sued, hire employees, own assets, and pay taxes. Some refer to it as a legal person. Organizational cost expense include the following: the survey costs associated with the review of potential markets, training employees in their new tasks, legal costs created by laws and articles of incorporation for a corporation, legal costs to create partnership agreement, filing fees with the applicable state government, cost of organizational meetings. Government restrictions and reports. It is a creature of the government. Various departments of the government have the right to exercise certain restrictions and to require certain reports. All types of annual and special reports, which frequently become burdensome and costly to the corporation, must be prepared. Few federal government regulation examples are taxes and financial regulation, employee wage and hour rules, workplace safety, discrimination law, environmental protection. Lack of personal interest. Our corporation has an identity for its own. These facts sometimes result in a lack of personal interest in the success or failure of the organization. Lack of interest can also be a problem in business because it will lead into failure. This may result in efficiency and in turn losses. Lack of secrecy. A corporation is duty bound to make an annual report to each stockholder. If it has only a few stockholders, this report may not become available to the public. When a considerable number of stockholders are involved, however, the annual reports become public property. Sales volume, gross profit margins, net profits, asset values, and other financial matters are accessible to all. As per legal provisions, a company has to make various statements available to the register of the company's financial institutions. The secrecy of business comes down. It is further reduced when the company provides its annual report to the shareholder as the competitors to also find out the details of all financial data. Outcomes of too much secrecy can include inadequate successor development, failure to build a strong management team, lack of coordination, planning, uncontrol, and alienation, resentment, and conflict among shareholders and family. When we say merge or merger, it is one or two or more companies combine each other to make a new company. The merger is sometimes called integration, the act or process of uniting different things. A merger is an agreement that unites two existing companies into one new company. In a merger, there is no business unit. The absorbed being corporation remains the same single auto layer corporation. For instance, example, when San Miguel Beer Brewery Corporation decided to buy out its competitors in the beer distillery business, a merger was affected. If a drug manufacturing corporation decides to absorb a corporation which engage in the printing of its labels and medical literature, a corporation manufacturing bottles and plastic cups, a corporation manufacturing alcohol and distilled water, a corporation which repairs and services its fleet of transportation equipment, a merger result. The trust as a form of business organization that is origin in the principle of law, originally developed for safeguarding the property of minors and other persons not able or willing to administer their own affairs. Forms of trust, namely, first, simple or dry trust, given full authority in the control and management of the business. Example are the managers. The active trusts are outlined in detailed form in the trust agreement. The investment trust, where it is not the administration of enterprises, but the pooling of funds by investors in order to obtain a diversification of risk by holding the securities of a large number of enterprises which is involved.